Hey guys, welcome back. This is Library of Orthanc, LOTR TCG, back with another all-foil deck tech video, again from the movie block. Today, we're going to look at the Worlds 2004 runner-up deck. So last time we did look at the World Championship deck, which was Elves with Ninja Golem. And so here we're going to look at the runner-up. So this today is a leaner deck. The world champion was 35 and 35 in terms of card count. And this is 31 and 31, so about as lean as you see. And today the sides are going to be Elves and Men for the light side, Free People's side. And for the shadow, we're going to be seeing Sauron Beseigers. So two very staple decks of this era in the game. In particular, Elves and Men. In the top 16, there were a number of Elves and Men decks. And I'd say, just timing-wise, Mount Doom had just been released, and so people had not yet caught on fully as far as how powerful Galadriel Lady Redeemed was. And so for the most part, people were playing what was safe and what was then currently known as the best deck. And that is, of course, Elves and Men. So we'll look at the deck list here. Like I said, this is going to be a leaner one at only 31 cards, but overall a very staple Elves and Men list. And then we'll move on to the Besiegers. So let's get right into it. So first off, looking at our starting fellowship, I think other than the Ringbearer, everything is always pretty predictable, but this Ringbearer is actually nice for Elves and Men. So this is Frodo the Tired Traveler from the Two Towers set. And basically what he says is he's resistance 10 as opposed to you can get the resistance 12 Frodo Resolute Hobbit. But this one is 2 less resistance, but he has the effect of play a Ringbound Companion to remove a burden. And why that's good in Elves and Men is you are going to be playing a Sam. That will remove an additional burden, as well as you are going to get down Faramir, and he is a ring-bound man, so he will also remove a burden, and he's one of your key companions. So that's going to be helping you out with a couple incidental burden removals throughout the game. So that's why we're playing the Tired Traveler. And for the ring, we are playing the Binding Ring. So again, that's going to be nice. We only have one ring in the deck in Vilya, but overall, again, it's a decent statistical ring, and being able to pull that Vilya when we want it to is going to be very nice. So we have the Binding Ring. And then, of course, never play Elves and Men without Legolas Greenleaf. Absolute great staple card. I say so much about Legolas all the time, so there's not much more to add here, but we do support him with the full suite of support cards in this deck. And then from the Reflection set, again, Glorfindel, revealed in Wrath, and Wrath, excuse me. I always want to say Wraith. But basically, again, Glorfindel does not count as a 4 since he's in your starting fellowship. He only counts as a 2. So there's 2 of your elves right there. Obviously, this is for the namesake card, Last Alliance of Elves and Men. You do have to be able to spot elves for that. So don't forget, if you kill off a Glorfindel or if you don't have an Elrond down or something like that, you don't just automatically get that power bonus. You actually have to spot the elves. That seems obvious, but something to always remember when you're playing this deck. So yes, so we've got Legolas, Glorfindel, and Frodo the Tired Traveler. So that's going to be our starting fellowship. Then moving into the companions, of course, as you know, the deck is called Elves and Men. So we need our men. First off, Aragorn, Ranger of the North, absolute beast of a card, released from the Fellowship expansion and continues to be good all the way through movie block. Why he is so good in particular is when it comes to trying to swarm, or when it comes to if you get to the Site 9 and you still have some vitality left on Aragorn, you can, of course, exert to make him Defender +1, and he can just take a dog pile of minions. So that's, like I said, great for swarm protection, but also great to deter attacks from the Ringbearer at Site 9. So we do have a full play set of Aragorn, Ranger of the North. Again, I think this is just a fantastic foil card, how they foiled the flaming brand that's going across his face there, and that's the only thing on the card, on the picture, that's foiled. Just an absolute beautiful card. So we've got 4 of those. Then our secondary fighter, as I was mentioning, is Faramir, the son of Denethor. So this card is sometimes, I think, misunderstood as far as how good it is. It is so good to just blank your opponent's skirmish events and skirmish abilities, because it just gives you absolute certainty. You know they can't have any tricks. So that's what Faramir is good for. And obviously when he's a 7, he's okay, but when you can get him to be a 10 or more, well, then obviously that can be really solid too. You know, especially you're facing off, for example, against Ninja Gollum, who we were just looking at in our last deck, to being able to basically not let Ninja Gollum do any of his skirmish tricks and then make sure that you're walking away winning that skirmish. That's huge. So we do have 2 copies of Faramir, son of Denethor. So again, as I said, he's ring-bound, so he does remove a burden for your Ringbearer when you play him. That's not what ring-bound means, but that's what it just says on Frodo Tired Traveler, is you can initiate his fellowship action, play a ring-bound companion to remove a burden, which of course you will do, as I said, with this. And so again, just a super solid Gondor man. Then, rounding it off, we do have Boromir, son of Denethor. He's great to pump the hobbits. Again, these are nothing new here. These are cards, again, that has been around since the Fellowship set. This guy just helps keep your Ringbearer alive, as well as your Sam, and just another decent Gondor man. You'll also see synergy with the Noble Leaders card for Aragorn, Faramir, Boromir, where you have to spot them by name. So we'll talk about that later on. Then rounding off with a couple scrub men here, we do have Derufin. Derufin, again, just does not look like a good card when you read him, but when you actually play with this as a way to clean up your opponent's possessions, he is actually fantastic. So let me describe how this works. So obviously you're not looking to fight with this guy. You're not looking to try to put a last alliance on him or anything like that. You're looking to basically just keep him out of combat. And then what you're looking to do, of course, is at your first chance, get yourself to exactly 5 cards, which is typically not hard to do, in your regroup phase, so that when you're in the regroup phase, you're going to initiate this action twice. You're going to exert him, discard a possession, exert him, discard another possession. Again, it's not a trigger, it's just a regroup action, so you can do that twice. And then the other things, synergistically wise, that you're going to be looking for to do with that is you do, of course, have, later on, we'll look at this, Elrond, the Herald to Gil-Galad. He does heal in the regroup phase. So what that means is what you can actually do is use these abilities, get him exhausted, heal him off of Elrond, since that's a regroup action, and then go ahead and use Derufin again. So that's obviously ridiculous when you're able to do that even more than twice. So you can very easily, if you're playing against a possession-heavy deck, whether it be the Besiegers that we'll look at here in a moment, or the Corsairs, you can just obliterate their whole support area. And we do have 1 copy of Saga of Elendil in here. I suppose if you had to go after another possession, you could slam that on him and get another possession discarded. So, and I say possession, but the actual text is engine, machine, or possession. So that's going to help you get rid of those conditions in the Besieger deck that are not actually possessions, but they are engines or machines. So that is Derufin. And again, that's pretty staple Elves and Men. You're going to see this in, I believe, every list that was part of that top 16. Now, this next one I'd say was more of a play choice. I only saw it in this one deck, and that is another scrub character, Dervorin. So kind of a similar concept to our friend there, Derufin, except for this guy is just a one-time use. So you don't have to exert him. It is a trigger at the start of the regroup phase, so very different than a regroup action, so you can only get this once, and there's no way to get it more than once. But that is, at the start of the regroup phase, if you have only 4 cards in hand, you may spot another man to discard a minion. So he just outright discards a minion, which again I think is pretty decent, but my guess is again you're putting him down kind of as a scrub. You'll see we've got a couple like Citadel of the Stars, Stone Tower type effects that you can again just use exertions off of him to play those, and then really just you discard a minion that has, you know, again just discard any minion, just take their best minion off the table. So that's Dervorin. So that is our men. Then our final companion here, as I mentioned earlier, is Sam, the son of Hamfast. No surprise here that this guy is involved. You guys all know what Sam does. No point in beating a dead horse on that. But like I said, the one thing to remember with Sam is, again, he is ring-bound. Make sure to trigger his ability off of Frodo, the Tired Traveler, to say, Fellowship, play a ring-bound companion to remove a burden. So that'll really jumpstart your Sam, where you can actually remove 4 burdens the turn you play him if you need to. So Sam, son of Hamfast. Then moving into our other elves, we do have, of course, as I also did mention earlier, Elrond, the Herald to Gil-Galad. So just a fantastic card, as you guys know, at healing. He is a little expensive, so obviously be mindful of when you play him, just in terms of flooding the Twilight Pool and not putting down a companion. But what he does, as you may know, is he does self-heal. And so he self-heals twice per turn, and then he exerts twice to heal a companion. So obviously monitor that, but basically what that averages to is you're healing 1.5 wounds a turn you're healing one wound a turn, but then you have kind of an extra exertion in there that you potentially are able to use again to double heal on a turn. And then also in terms of double healing on a turn, the other thing that you have, I did mention, if I can find it here in my stack, because it goes along with Elrond, good to talk about, is we do have Vilya. So this is Vilya from the Realms of the Elflord set also, and this is your great combo here, is you put Elrond on Vilya. That lets you do a double exertion, and you will always have Vilya out because you do have the Binding Ring. So the Binding Ring will pull Vilya whenever you have Elrond, and basically you just get that down and you have your double healing. And then, of course, when you draw into your extra copies of Elrond, those are double healing turns also. So there's a lot of healing going on with Elrond. And also, don't forget, you also have some condition control on this. I don't know that you'll be using it for this because we do have multiple Secret Sentinels in here. But if you have to, you can return shadow conditions to their owner's hand using Elrond. Using the ability on Vilya. But I think primarily we're going to be looking to heal with him, especially when you have like an active green leaf healing. Healing with Elrond is so good. So there's the 3 Elronds and Vilya. And again, just beautiful cards in this deck. It's so fun to play this deck because it's just full of high quality mains in all foil. And it's just nice sight to see while you're playing. And then our last elf. So Elrond's typically going to be our third elf. We start 2. We've got Glorfindel and Legolas, and then Elrond is elf number 3 for the last alliance of elves and men. Then our last elf in the deck is Galadriel, also a healer, not as potent as Elrond, but gives us some more healing in here. And again, a little bit expensive for what she does for 3, but she does at the start of each of your turns, you may heal an elf. So it's kind of a just automatic once per turn at the start of the turn. And so we just have this in here, 1 copy, can be a third elf if you need to, if you lose an elf, and then just, again, some more additional incidental healing. I don't think we're doing anything with the forests, being that we're on the King's Sitepath, but I'll double check when we go through the sites. But I believe this is just in here strictly for the healing and to be an elf if we would need that. And again, just a beautiful card. Speaking of beautiful cards, moving in now to our artifacts, and one of the absolute most beautiful cards in the game of Lord of the Rings Anduril, the Flame of the West. Beautiful card and an absolute staple. So I always love it when you've got the cards that have the vitality foil, on the weapons. I think it just puts more pop to it. And then, of course, you've got the standard beautiful foiling of all the aspects of this. But Anduril is just a beautiful card, but also just hugely key because this just turns Aragorn into an absolute beast. So again, you can't bear a bow if you're going to have this, but you do get damage +1 and, of course, power +2, vitality +1. So that's just so many bonuses: 2 power, 1 vitality, 1 damage, which is just absolutely absurd. And then you can make sure also that you get to always play the sanctuaries of your choice. Again, this actually becomes more relevant when you play something like Expanded, but it's still decent, certainly in Return of the King, in particular for Site 6, where you're trying to play your Minas Tirith level that matches your characters so that they can heal if you are double moving through there. That is very relevant. So that is the Anduril Flame of the West. So then in addition to that, we do have one elven artifact, which is Aiglos. And again, this is not here for Gil-Galad. This is here for Legolas. So this is going to give Legolas an extra 1 vitality. It's certainly safer than the Tale of Gil-Galad because this artifacts are virtually impossible for shadow players to discard, as opposed to conditions are not. So you can sometimes get yourself in an awkward spot with Tale of Gil-Galad if your opponent discards it, but Aiglos is much safer. And then you do also have your option of discarding this artifact to wound a minion for each elf you can spot. So that's going to be wounding 3 to 4 minions once per game, and that is going to also be worthwhile to keep an eye on. But again, make sure you're not, if you're going to be trying to throw this, make sure that you're not exhausting your Legolas, because that will prohibit you from throwing it. Or I should say, rather, if you throw it, you'll kill yourself. So you don't want to do that. So that is, and when I say throw, I'm just saying discard it. I'm just using that as a flavorful term. I don't think they use that term in Lord of the Rings, but it that's virtually what you're doing with this, discarding it to do that ability in the regroup phase. So kind of wish they did actually print the cards that way. I think that would have added a little more nice flavor, but yeah, still great card, Aiglos. Then moving into our one and only weapon, we do have Sting, Baggins Heirloom. This one I actually think is creepy, the foiling, because Frodo's eyes are foil. It's cool, but it kind of reiterates the scariness of Frodo in that scene. But basically, this is just a pump for your Ringbearer, but also it has this incidental ability that can be relevant for Ninja Golem, which is exert Frodo to make Golem strength -2. So don't forget that, like I said, when you're playing Ninja Golem is pretty much when that's going to be relevant. Some other decks splash Golem too, but don't rule out the possibility of making Golem strength -2. And again, be fully aware, Frodo does not have to be the one skirmishing him to use that. It just says skirmish, exert Frodo to make Golem strength -2. So Golem could be skirmishing Aragorn, and I can just have Frodo over here with his 5 vitality that I don't need, just using selective pumps to or I should say reductions as opposed to pumps, but selective reductions on Golem, just exerting once to make him go down 2 power if I need to win some skirmishes. So this is actually very nice as a annoyance card to help with Ninja Golem. Then we are finishing out the deck here with our conditions and events. We have, of course, our namesake card, 2 copies of The Last Alliance of Elves and Men. Again, just an awesome card. I love that mural of Elendil holding up the, Isildur holding up the sword, the broken sword of Elendil. And basically what this says is, Tale, bearer must be a Gondor man, limit 1 per bearer. Bearer's strength +1 for each elf you can spot with a limit of +3. I think this is a cool card too, because for being that it was printed in Fellowship of the Ring and that it's clearly a helper card for Gondor men, I love that it's an elven culture card. I think that was really cool how they did it, because that easily could have been a Gondor card, but because it's going on a Gondor man. But I really love the cross-cultural flavor there that they have going on. So there's 2 copies of this. Again, sometimes you'll see 3, just so you get it earlier and you have a backup copy. But we're really looking for 1 to put on Aragorn and 1 to put on Faramir. And I think because this is a leaner deck with only 31 cards, we're comfortable with only playing 2. Then both of these were mentioned earlier. Tale of Gil-Galad for extra vitality on an elf, and Saga of Elendil for extra vitality on a Gondor man. Again, both of those can be discarded as pumps also. And again, Legolas is primarily going to be our guy for this. This, I'm not sure if it's for Aragorn, for Dervorin, just for whomever needs it, but it's in there. This you'll see all the time in Elves and Men. This is more of a meta call, or more of a specific play choice, I should say, that this deck that I'm looking at made. So those are your 2 conditions, or should I say those are 2 additional conditions, because Last Alliance is a condition, and then we have 3 more conditions now still to look at, which are our Gondor conditions. We have Citadel of the Stars. This is nice because these you can just slam down in your support area. So I'm always in favor of these because you don't have to use them right now. It's just a pay 1 and put this in your support area. And then when you need it, basically this is a exert any man to wound a minion. So, wound a minion skirmishing your Gondor man. But basically you have it on the sideline where if you ever have someone exhausted, you can just finish them off with the last wound. And like I said, you just sit it in your support area for when you need it. Very similar to that is the Stone Tower. This one requires 2 exertions, but it does give 2 exertions to the minion as well. So similar concept to what I was just mentioning. You drop it in the support area, you let it sit there, and then it's there when you need it. Again, these are cool looking foils too. And last condition here is the Noble Leaders. Again, if you haven't played this a lot, it kind of seems like, this only is going to give you a +1 strength bonus, but, don't underestimate how good, in particular, the damage bonus on this is. And if you do this right, you're going to at least get 2 tokens on here, 1 for Aragorn and 1 for Faramir. You may also have Boromir down. If you do, great, you'll get a 3rd token. And basically the effect is remove a token to make a companion, or discard the condition, I should say, to make a companion strength +1 and damage +1. So if you literally just have Aragorn and Faramir down and you get 2 tokens, that means 3 times per game you get to throw a damage +1 into a skirmish when you need it. And that is not to be underestimated how good that is. The strength +1 could put you over the top, but it's more likely that you're going to use this to kill minions, to take them off the table. And in theory, if you wanted to, you can remove 2 tokens to get power +2 and damage +2 in a single skirmish. This is not restricted or limited in any way. So keep that in mind should you need to do that. But it's just a fantastic card to sprinkle those bonuses in when you need it. So that is our conditions. And lastly, we have our events, and that is 3 copies of the Secret Sentinels. So this deck is definitely wanting to really keep your opponent's conditions in check. Usually you'll see only 2 copies of this card, so to go up to the 3rd, especially in a lean deck like 31, to me really says that he wants this down and he wants to just obliterate his opponent's conditions. Or in particular, maybe he's concerned about orc decks, because this is really good against orcs when you get that double condition discard. But again, this is another thing that when you do this, it replaces one of the healings that Elrond is going to do, because you're going to have to exert Elrond or I should say, Elrond exerts twice to heal, and he only has to exert once for Secret Sentinels, but it potentially replaces the healing by making you have to exert on Elrond. And obviously, if you have Galadriel down, she's a great one to exert because you don't care, quite frankly, if you have to exert her. So if you have Galadriel, look to put the exertions on her. But yes, 3 copies of the Secret Sentinels. So that is the Free People's side. Like I said, pretty standard elves and men, couple meta choices, and a little leaner by a couple cards than you might usually see. But yeah, let's dive right in to the minion side. And so in this one, I'm going to actually look at it a little backwards of how I sometimes do. I usually look at the minions first, but in this deck, this is a very condition first deck, I guess you could say. And what I mean by that is this is Beseigers, and the primary focus of Beseigers is building engines, because the engines then will make your minions cheaper. So what I'm going to actually look at with you guys first is our engines. So we have the Great Siege Towers. Again, we're going to be playing a full play set of this, largely because A, it's non-unique, and B, it only costs 1, and it's a support area condition, so we can just, as many of these as we have, we can just throw down. Because quite frankly, other than being duplicative engines, it doesn't actually benefit us to have more of these down, really, because the action Shadow play a Besieger to place a token here, you can only do that once, meaning, if I had 2 of these down, it's not like I can initiate that action twice to play a single character. All I can do is, say Shadow, play my 1 Besieger that I have in my hand, and I'm only going to get 1 token. I'm not going to get 2, even if I have 2 of these out. Of course, the one thing to be mindful of, if you do have 2 of these out, keep your tokens evenly spread between the 2. Don't make one of them a target for your opponent to take away all your bonuses, because you can remove a token to make a Sauron Orc strength +1 to a limit of +2. So keep your tokens spread, and technically you can get a +2 from here and a +2 from here if you had to. So if you ever wanted to exceed the limit, that's the real only benefit of splitting up your tokens, is potentially you can get a limit of +2 off this card and a limit of +2 off of this card. That probably doesn't come up a lot, but the incentive to split your tokens exists anyway for condition discard. So we do have 4 full copies of the Great Siege Towers. But again, it's really the hugest function of that is just to be a 1-cost engine that goes to your support area, as many of these things are. The next one here, they're marching companies. Same idea in that it is a 1-cost support area condition. And what this one does actually require you to have a minion down to spot the minion to play it. The nice thing with the Siege Towers is there's no spotting requirement. You can just throw it down. It's not usually a big deal, but it again, important to be aware of. And then this one is your site stacker. So you can remove a threat to stack a minion on a site you control, or that's in the regroup phase, or in the shadow phase, you can remove a threat to play a minion stacked on a site you control. So this does both. It lets you stack minions on sites, and then it lets you play them back off of sites. Strategy-wise on that, again, being an engine is huge, and then getting minions stacked on a site for the opportune time can be fantastic, especially if you're trying to swarm someone and you get some cheap minions stacked on a site. That can be a great time to then, remove a couple threats and play a couple extra minions that your opponent isn't expecting. But overall, it's nice to sit them on sites. You do get some bonuses for having minions sitting on sites too. So we've just got 2 of those. And one thing too, of course, to reiterate with that to mention that I didn't mention is this is stack a minion on a site you control. So this presupposes that in order to even use this at all, you have to at least control 1 site. And how do we control sites? This is one method, is these next cards you see here. So this one says, again, to play Spot an Orc, so it's got the spotting requirement. Again, it's a support area condition that's also an engine. So you're noticing a lot of commonalities of all these cards have that, 1-cost, support area condition, engine. This has a very nice bonus of each Besieger is strength +1 for each site you control. So if you control that first site, this gives, pretty much all the cards in your deck, I think maybe actually all the cards in your deck, strength +1. So that's not to be underestimated either. That's pretty nice to get that global pump. But then if you really need to take control of a site, this lets you, in the regroup phase, basically discard off your table. It's a pretty hefty cost. You have to discard 3 orcs, but it does let you discard 3 orcs and this condition to control a site. So if you have a good thought that your opponent's not moving again and you're going to be cleaning up those minions anyway, that's when you're going to want to look to say, nope, I'm going to discard those minions myself and control a site. So we do have 2 of those, and that is a unique card, so I'd say you're probably looking to actually use that ability and then replace it again later in the game to either use that ability again or get the +1 bonus for your Besiegers. Again, another support area condition engine that costs 1. No surprise there. This one is also unique, the Troop Tower, and this one says, again, to play Spot an Orc, all orcs are strength +1 for each besieger stacked on a site. So this is where if you did stack multiple besiegers, the first one gives you +1, the second one gives you another +1 for a total of +2. So it can actually add up the bonuses, and it's just counting however many besiegers you have stacked on that site. So that's where I was saying, keep those besiegers stacked, keep getting the bonus, and then when you have a swarm opportunity, feel free to unstack them, but otherwise keeping them stacked does give you benefits. And then this one has a really easy control a site condition. All you have to do is discard a besieger to take control of a site. So this last one, you had to discard 3 orcs. This, you only had to discard 1. And I should say, too, any of these, when you're doing that, you also have to discard the condition. You know, that's the same effect on the Troop Tower as well as on the Tower Walkway. You discard the condition plus whatever the requirement is. 3 orcs on the last one, 1 besieger on this one. And like I said, we'll look at the cards, but I'm pretty sure in this deck an orc and a besieger. Actually, besieger is a broader term because it's going to apply to your trolls versus orcs. Orcs are only going to be any non-troll character, was what I'm trying to say. Sorry about that. This is an absolute fantastic staple card and a beautiful card at that too. Grond, the Hammer of the Underworld. This, if you're not familiar with this card, you need to be. This does things that other cards just quite simply can't do. And what I mean by that is, it lets you discard any Free People's card. So this lets you discard artifacts. This lets you discard characters, companions, allies. Primarily companions are critical because if you can discard a companion that your opponent only has 1 copy of and they don't have an extra to play, it's as good as killing that companion, meaning because they're not going to come back the rest of the game. So again, yeah, discarding a companion, the rule on that is it's not like putting them in the dead pile. So like if someone, in that Elves and Men deck, for example, if someone discarded one of my Aragorn Ranger of the Norths off the table, well, I can just play another Aragorn Ranger of the North. Would that be annoying? Yes, but I'd still have my Aragorn. As opposed to if I discarded Boromir, well, you only have 1 Boromir, you're never going to see another one again, so that really just takes Boromir out of the game. So that's important to realize with that is this, you can get artifacts, you can get characters. And so when I say you can get them, let's back up here and say, well, how do I get them? How do I get rid of them? Well, you do it with this. So this is more expensive to start out, as you can see. And how you get this fueled is play a minion to add a token here. So typically, if you get Grond down, you want to get tokens on it right away because it's going to be a big target for your opponent to try to discard. So you want to get your tokens on it and use it right away. So in the Shadow phase, you can play a Sauron minion to add a token to it. And then in the regroup phase, that's when you get the card. You remove X tokens from here to discard a Free People's card with Twilight cost of X. So whatever card you're trying to get rid of, you have to have that many tokens on here. But again, you get a token for every single minion you play. And so in particular, if you're going for cheaper Free People's cards, something that only costs 1, you only got to remove 1 token, which means you only had to play 1 minion. And the really ridiculous thing about this is that all these other things, when you were discarding, when you were controlling a site, you had to discard the possession. Well, that's an option with Grond. When you're discarding the Free People's card, you can discard this possession, or you can waive discarding the possession and instead discard a Sauron minion. So you always, if able, want to discard that Sauron minion and keep Grond on the table. Keep Grond on the table. Because reusing this is going to be your path to victory, quite frankly. And you're able to just snipe anything that is key to them, whether it's a condition. Didn't even mention that. You can get rid of their conditions with it, get rid of their key possessions, get rid of their key companions. You can just do anything with this. So whatever is giving you troubles, Grond will take care of. So just very, very key card. Again, I love the foil on this too, because it looks like it's on fire and you can see the fire burning through its teeth. That's like the battering ram they use that the orcs use. But just amazing card for gameplay and sweet looking card. Then our other single artifact here, we have the Ithil Stone. This is just great because it just gives you an extra card every turn. So easy to get down because all you have to do is exert one of your minions, and then you always get to draw a card at the start of each of your shadow phases. So that really just helps you get more cards in hand, cycle more. You've got a lot of cheap engines down. That'll keep the engines flowing. And then ultimately at some point in the game, you can basically play a very discounted minion for -3 as well. So this is just definitely a great card to have in there once. One copy of that. All right, so that was our kind of support suite. Now the rest of what you're going to see is all of our minions. So that's really the deck is, your supporting engines. I should say Ithil Stone's not an engine. Everything else here, though, is an engine. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So you have 11 engines here that we just looked at. And then the rest of it is all minions. So first off, our most key, most brutal minion is the Troll of Gorgoroth. What I love about this guy is just when you can play this for free, nothing defensively really in Lord of the Rings feels better. All you have to do is if you have 5 engines down, this guy gets -2 for each engine. So if you have 5 engines down, this guy is free. And what are you getting for free? You're getting a 14 power fierce Besieger. Now again, to get him down, you have to have a Sauron orc down, any Sauron orc. And then the other effect, of course, is he will allow you to really stack up those sites for a swarm later. So you can exert Troll of Gorgoroth to stack your Besieger on a site you control. And obviously he has a ton of vitality, so he's really able to just, if he's down, just have your lesser minions hop up and go on to a site. And I suppose technically too, you can exert him to put him on a site, especially if he's going to be costing free anyway. You could exert him to stack himself on a site you control, because it doesn't say your other Besieger. I don't know if I've ever done that, but he is a Besieger, so you should be able to exert him to stack him on a site you control and kind of remove all of his wounds and have him on the site for later. So that is the Troll of Gorgoroth. We do have 3 copies of that. So he's your best, biggest baddie. Then the next one is actually potentially better under certain circumstances. So this guy is only -1 for each engine. So let's say we have those same 5 engines down. Well, he's going to cost 4. But again, for 4 cost, I'm going to get a 16 power Fierce Besieger. He's actually a little more powerful. And he has this other effect that is just fantastic, fantastic on the king site path, which is when you play him at sites 5 king to 9 king, you may discard a free people's condition. So just right printed on his card, he's got condition discard. Excuse me. And I didn't mention the Troll of Gorgoroth is unique and the Great Hill Troll is non-unique. So you can't even really say which one of these is strictly better because they're both different in different ways and they're both incredibly impactful. And we have that full play set of the Great Hill Troll. Then we have our Gorgoroth Soldier. This is very good in this meta because there's not a lot of ways to prevent wounds. and this guy will just prevent wounds. He will also help you cycle cards from your hand. So discard 2 cards from hand is not always a negative thing if you want to be cycling. So that is a really good bonus there as well, to say I'm going to prevent wounds, but also I'm going to help cycle cards from my hand. And again, this is just a response, so this can happen anytime. So if in the archery phase, Legolas is trying to arch one of your minions down, you can use it because it's just response. So that's always great to remember. Anytime you see something that says response, that's open to any phase. So anytime you'd receive a wound, whether it's in a skirmish, archery, anything, this guy can heal it. So we do play a full play set of him for that reason. He's just a very, very good card at keeping our key guys on the table. And our next minion here is probably one of our key ones in the deck. This is the best one, I'd say, to stack as well. And that is the Gorgoroth Assassin. So I usually like to play a full play set of this, but this is, again, a leaner deck, so we're only playing 3. And what he does is, of course, 2 costs, very inexpensive, Besieger, and he has assignment, spot, an engine, or a site you control to assign this minion to an unbound companion. So you get to assign this guy. Usually there's like, opponent may exert to prevent this, or opponent may do something to prevent that assignment, but there's nothing that prevents this guy's assignment. So if you get this stacked on a site and can keep recurring these, and you get to be the one to assign them, that is, very hard to stop. So I really like these guys. Like I said, I'd probably go up to 4 if I were building this, but very easy to activate, very easy to recur using if you can get him be the minion that you're going to stack. Then a couple very expensive guy here, the Siege Troop. We've got 2 copies of that. 20 power, pretty crazy, but what he's really in there for is you just throw him down and he's going to be someone to give you control of a site, because you put him down and as long as he doesn't take 2 wounds, you can exert him twice to take control of a site. So that's just a nice, easy way to get a site controlled. Siege Troop. Then this next guy is kind of our crowd control person instead of Inkea, and that is the Gorgoroth Swarm. So we've got a couple copies of this in here. And what it does is when you play this minion, you may spot 6 companions and another besieger to play a besieger from your discard pile and control a site. So that's a pretty absurd bonus. Basically, if your opponent goes up to 6, you get to dig out your best minion out of the discard pile and recur him back, and just automatically take control of a site. So very, very key bonus. We've got 2 copies of this in here. If your opponent's not getting up to 6, this still just doubles as a averagely statistical besieger, but what it's really in there for is the crowd control. And then our last guy here, we do have the Gorgoroth Agitator to play Spot an Orc. When you play this minion, I always think it's weird that there's some of these just like fairly arbitrary spotting requirements on a lot of these besiegers. But to play this minion, Spot an Orc. When you play this minion, if you can spot another besieger, which your orc would be one, you may add a threat for each companion over 4. So he's your threat adder. Again, you could go up to at least a couple of this guy too. But basically, even if your opponent's sitting at 5 companions, you still get to add 1 threat. If they're going up to 6 or 7, obviously you're going to just add massive amounts of threats. And then also, he can allow you to recur engines from your discard pile by removing a threat. But I think mostly he's in there just to keep the threats flowing, in particular for your marching companies to be able to stack your besiegers on the site. And again, the good thing to remember about the King Block Sitepath is that is the most threat-friendly path as far as allowing you to have sites that create threats. And so then this is fueled by your threats. So that is the Besiegers. I'd say that is definitely one of the more complicated shadow sides that there is in the movie block. Complicated just in the sense that there's so many things that you need to remember. There's, like I said, there's a lot of weird spotting requirements on your cards that are very easy to meet, but you just got to make sure that you do meet them. You've got a ton of sequencing with getting your engines down and then playing cheaper trolls. And then I think the most complicated decision tree here is just when do you stack a besieger on a site? When do you play them off the site? When do you try to go to control a site? That's going to be the stuff that you're just going to have to get your reps in with the deck and play some games to see, to get a better feel for those things, which is why I say that's the most challenging. That part's definitely not linear like some strategies are. So to finish this off here, let's just look at our Sitepath. So first off, we've got the Steps of Edoras. That just makes all of your Gondor men defender +1 until end of turn. So I suppose you could burn off some of those crappy Gondor men, but other than that, it's just a nice bonus to help stay alive, help keep your Ringbearer alive. We have the Rohirrim Camp. If the shadow has an initiative, minions are not roaming. So again, that's just looks like most of our guys roam at 5. So that is a nice bonus to allow them to not be roaming should you get to trigger that. The third site is the base of Mindolluin. And what that does is if you cannot spot 2 threats, you can add a threat to play a fortification. So this is fantastic with the double fortifications that we're playing in there, the Stone Tower as well as the Citadel of the Stars, because if you have no threats down, you can add 2 threats and get both of those fortifications out of your deck at site 3. So that's just fantastic to really get that, get those cycled out of your deck into your support area for when you need them. So that's the base. Then the Anduin Banks, again, pretty medium of a site, not great. Remove a burden to make a minion strength +2, but you're not really doing anything with burdens, so you could feel free to do that. This is like a site that's designed for besiegers. This is the Crashed Gate. So basically it says you must add 3 threats or choose an opponent to take control of a site. So getting a free site control is amazing for this deck, but getting 3 threats is also amazing. So it's lose-lose for your opponent with the Crashed Gate. So that's the definite beastly besieger site there. Then we've got the 6th circle to heal our Gondor men. No surprise there. And we've got the Osgiliath Crossing. This is the one that says exert 2 minions and spot 6 companions to draw 2 cards. Again, because I think you have a potential to do some swarm here with, in particular if you're stacking some minions on a site. So drawing and getting more cards is always good. Also, it's good to get those engines drawn and cycled through and played down. So I can see why the card draw one is good for this deck. Then the Morgul Vale, remove 2 threats to make your Sauron minion strength +3. Again, removing 2 threats is a hefty cost, but if getting that +3 is going to allow you to win an important skirmish, then that's what you'll do. So that's a cool looking sight, I always think. And lastly, Dagorlad, no surprise there, very staple of most movie block decks, just gives you 3 threats to play with for site 9. So that is our deck. So that was the, again, runner-up world champion. And what we're going to start doing next is I'm going to work my way down the list as far as decks go. But like I said, there's a lot of elves and men in there, so I'm going to have to be selective as far as we might see split decks is what I'm trying to say at this point, where you might see decks that are just the shadow or just the free peoples, because I don't want to keep showing you multiple variants of elves and men that have 1 or 2 cards different from each other. So yeah, we'll figure out what makes the most sense for us to do that, and just continue to feature decks, but might not be as robust as what you're seeing here with the full decks, because of the repetition, and because I don't want to show repetition for you guys. I want to show you good variety of different decks. So sorry for that little bit of a ramble. I'm just trying to get my thumbnail out here with some sweet looking cards that we can feature here. Can't get a good there we go. There's a good angle there on the lighting to show off some of the foils on the cards there. So, well, guys, thanks for watching. Really appreciate all the positive feedback you guys are giving me on these longer deck techs. I have a lot of fun making them, a lot of fun explaining the cards, and it's always fun for me just to get these cards out and look at them because they're so beautiful, especially the elves and men with all the mains. So really appreciate all the positive vibes coming my way for doing this. So I'm going to keep trucking at it, and you guys stay tuned for more videos. Thanks.